So good morning, Vermont. Thank you for meeting with me today. My name is Colleen. I am a student, a first-year doctorate in psychology student through Adler University, and I'm currently doing my social justice practicum. And so I wanted to interview some past students of Moving Forward and see some of their experience with Mental Health Week coming up next week, October 4th to 11th, I believe. We wanted to just have some information from past students and their experience. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, hi. So my name is Vermont, and I'm a registered clinical counselor now. I did do my internship at Moving Forward about 2 years ago now. Wow, time flies. So I have my own private practice now that's called Just Live Counseling Services. And I work mainly with children and youth, young adults, and with the LGBTQ community. Yeah.
Wow, that's so great. Okay, well, thank you very much for your introduction. Why don't we get started with some of the questions? So one question I wanted to ask you, it's a very broad question, but I'm hoping you have some ideas around it. But what are your thoughts around mental illness?
Well, one, I don't really like the word illness. It's attached with so much negative thoughts or stigma to it. And in reality, I think a lot of people suffer from mental wellness, mental health issues. And it'd be so much better if, we were able to just talk about it more openly, right? It's very normal. I mean, everyone suffers from stress, from anxiety from time to time. And it's kind of like on a spectrum. Some people deal with it a little bit better. Some people have a little better coping mechanisms. And some people need a little bit more guidance and a little bit more help with that.
Yeah, so I mean, instead of putting the word illness, which sounds more of a negative connotation to the word, looking at it more as, some people need extra adaptations or extra support or have extra needs. And I appreciate that you mentioned the stigma piece, because that was actually another thing I wanted to ask you about is what are your thoughts around the stigma that's often associated with mental health or mental illness?
I think it's gotten a lot better because more people are being more open with their mental health. However, there's still a lot of stigma pertaining to seeing a counselor or to seeing a therapist or just seeking help, especially in certain cultures. And I think my culture is one that doesn't look very highly on mental health. We don't value it as much as we should, which is concerning because you see a lot of, and I don't want to stereotype, but you see a lot of people from my culture kind of having that, that functional depression, right? They're able to go to work, they're able to do their daily tasks and complete everything. And to the outside world, they seem fine, but they go home and there's a lot of, depression there, or a lot of things that come out through like arguments with the family and pieces like that, comes out as maybe anger issues, right? So yeah, I think there's still a lot more work to be done in terms of that stigma piece around mental health.
Yeah, and so the stigma is much more than just kind of a community issue. It's more, it especially with different cultures, it can be more ingrained in people's day-to-day lives. And then because of the stigma, different issues are played off as something else that might be a little bit more socially appropriate, maybe in some cultures. And then in turn, they're not getting the support that might be helpful in treating some of the challenges that they're facing because of that stigma. So it sounds like it's you see it as a barrier for people accessing supports, for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Sure. So when you think of kind of getting support for mental health or mental illness or that piece, what do you think of? What comes to mind for you, or what recommendations would you make for people?
That's a good question. I think it's very important to find someone who you can feel a connection with. So I would say really like do some research, kind of like read up on counselor's profile and see if what they say speaks to you, because it is really important that you find someone that you're comfortable talking to, right? If you feel, you know, whether a little intimidated or you feel like this person is not going to get you, that's also going to be a barrier in kind of improving that mental health piece. You might kind of limit the things you say, or you're constantly watching what you want to say to them. So I think it's important to kind of, do your research and kind of see if you can find somebody who fits you and your personality as well, right? And even like take up on like the counselors' free 15-minute consultations, right? Use those up and really try to chat with the counselors and kind of get a feel of how they approach counseling. That would be my advice.
Yeah. So more than just a quick little Google search, it's important to have that connection with your counselor and feel safe with them. So doing your research and hearing recommendations and different things like that would be a recommendation you would make to people who might be looking for counseling or different kinds of support.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Maybe related, but not so related. What brought you to the field of counseling? So you're a counselor now. And you have been for some time now. What brought you to this area of work?
Yeah, it does kind of lead back to that whole stigma piece about mental health, and the thing was, I saw it a lot in just in terms of my culture, family and friends, and it, like growing up, it wasn't something that we talked about, right? We didn't talk about, you know, our feelings. We didn't talk about like how this is impacting us. So I think that kind of set like the groundwork for me. And at the same time, I was seeing a lot of mental health pieces, just in terms of like dementia runs in my family, and pieces like that, where you know, I was intrigued and I wanted to learn more about that. However, I didn't figure that out until like much later on in my life. But yeah, I think, you know, going to school and things like that, I never really had like a dream job or a career that I wanted to get into. I kind of fell into it by just taking my undergrad was in psychology, and then from there, as I was doing my undergrad, I worked with children who had autism. So I was doing that. And I think that brought out a lot of a different perspective of life for me. And working with these children, it was both rewarding and very challenging at the same time. And then from there, I kind of led into I want to work with kids. I want to, you know, help kids and do that. So I kind of took a detour and went into teaching. Did that and found out very quickly that it wasn't something for me. I liked the one-on-one aspect. I like talking to the kids one-on-one or in small groups. I like getting to know them, getting to have fun with them. And through that and through like a lot of school, because I worked in a school, so a lot of that interaction, I found kids, you know, they would come up to me and tell me things, and we would talk about things and we'd be able to joke around. But I didn't like the teaching aspect. And I found that very challenging. So from there, I kind of had to really figure out what I wanted to do, because for me, I wasn't going to do something I didn't love for, you know, the next 40 years or something. So from there, I kind of like, discovered like, hey, I can do my master's in counseling, and I think that would be a really good field. So I did some research, and here we are today.
Yeah, so it sounds like you didn't have a kind of straight, narrow path. You kind of went with different things and found your niche, and here you are.
Yeah, and sometimes that's kind of important, right? Because when we talk to kids and we talk to teenagers who are kind of deciding where to go with their life, they think like that decision is kind of set in stone. They make up their mind and that's it. So I often tell them, I tell them my story, and I say like, look, I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? But eventually you'll figure that out, as long as you're constantly working on trying to find out what you like to do and what works for you, and discovering who you are. The other pieces will fall in line as well.
Yep, for sure. For sure. Which leads me to my last question. And it's a little bit of a different shift, but I do my social justice practicum, and so one of the thoughts that's often on my mind currently is around creating a socially just society. So my question about that is, why do you think it's important to create a socially just society?
Wow, this is such a deep question that we can probably talk about for hours. Oh, wow. But I think, you know, the world is already established in a very unfair, unjust way. So what can we do to kind of close that gap a little bit? If, you know, we're able to help make some more changes that promotes equality, that promotes social justice, wouldn't that be better for us as a society in a whole? That's kind of my short answer. Yeah, I mean, like, if we can promote social justice piece, I think other aspects and other areas of life would be better.
Yeah. So it's like, for you, it's just a given. Like, this is what you do because it makes things better.
Yeah. And I wish other people saw it as simple as that, but unfortunately there are many underlying layers, of course, but at the end of the day, we have to kind of look at, you know, what's important, and I guess that's the difference, right? Different people find different pieces more important.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, thank you very much for your time today, for sharing your knowledge and experience. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure others will as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.